My black and white scarf, my black and white scarf, my black and white scarf, my black and white, yeah, it's black and white, we're just black and white, it's my black and white, it's my black and white scarf.
Good evening. A bit of a late start tonight. I'm joined by a legend in Niall Leary coming up in 2 seconds before Chris joins us from Drogland, where he was witnessing another win in Kevin Doherty's lucky charm in whatever the stadium's called this year, Weavers Park. I don't know if you can remember the name, but a 2-0 win for Dundalk and Oriel tonight against a Kerry team that under new management play a quick style of football. But again, we're probably going to be talking about 2 cracking goals. But are we going to be talking about much else, Niall? We're not sure, are we?
No, it was a very gritty game, Andy, to be fair. I mean, it kind of reminded me of the Europa League final on Wednesday. It was that bad, to be fair. It didn't make for great viewing. And in fairness, Kieran Kilduff in his post-match just there a short while ago wasn't majorly complimentary of his own side's performance. I mean, he wanted a lot more. So I suppose 3 changes at half-time, a triple substitution at half-time despite being 1-0 ahead probably tells its own story. I mean, it was scrappy stuff, and I mean, it was 2 moments of brilliance. Maybe one of them might have been a fluke. I'm not so sure, but 2 cracking goals and 3 points in the bag, and I suppose it's 16 games undefeated, and I mean that will be the story. But Dundalk has they've kind of had to find a way tonight, and that's been the theme for a lot of the games this season, particularly at Oriel Park. So they managed to do it today, and that's I suppose that's the one positive. Yeah,
it has been. It's I think almost every show, and I don't know every show, but definitely a lot of ones I've been involved in. Maybe it's my fault, maybe it's not the team at all. But I don't know if it's the expectation maybe, or the players that we have, the quality, the young players that we had. You look at Shane Tracy starting tonight. You've also got Vinnie Leonard. Are we expecting a wee bit too much? I don't know. Maybe look, table-wise, results-wise, we don't have a lot to be given out about. But there just seems to be something just, tonight, for instance, we're probably missing someone to put the ball in the back of the net. But even though we scored twice, you see comments looking for maybe a centre forward or in the window even. But I don't even know if it's that. There just seems to be a wee bit of just a lack of guile, just something a wee bit off. It's not for the lack of trying. It just seems to be, we always seem to be missing something at these games. Like you say, particularly Oriel Park, away games, look, you'll take whatever you can get because, a win on the road anyway, especially with the travel you're going to be doing in the first division, is good results. You take Cove Ramblers, for instance, last week, but we just seem to be wanting more, don't we? Almost every game, we just seem to want, even though we're getting the results, we're top of the league, we just need to, we know there's that little bit more in this group.
Yeah, I think so. And, Dundalk do have good quality, certainly for first division standards, there's good quality in that side. I mean, when you have to look at the goal scorers today, Darrell Horgan, a 17-time capped Republic of Ireland international, Leo Gaxa, has got great quality. There's quality like Aid Dervin, lots of Premier Division experience, and there's lots of quality around that pitch. So, Keith Ward, real playmaker in the League of Ireland Premier Division for so many years, real creative outlet. I mean, Gibemi Arumi up top, got 2 goals in 2 games. Dean Ebbe, top scorer in the first division last season. I mean, there's good quality and Sean Keogh has had so many goal involvements this year for a left back. There's lots of creative and offensive quality in that team at the moment. Now, I think the problem Dundalk are facing, and I had a piece with Kieran Kilduff during the week with this, is like you're struggling to break teams down because there is that factor, especially at Oriel Park. I feel there's that factor of teams, with the greatest respect to these clubs, but they're smaller clubs. In the first division coming to a place like Oriel Park, there's an added edge to it. I think Kieran, it was myself and Davey Whispering from LMFM down in Cove last week covering the game, and Kieran made the comment that the games against Treaty, Bray Wanderers and Finn Harps at Oriel Park, there was pitch invasions for a draw basically. at those 3 matches, and like that is the reality of it. I mean, like, that's where we are, and we have to kind of deal with that. And it's been a struggle to break teams down at times. We've dropped points at home. Today was a similar setup. I mean, you have to look at the way Kerry set up under Colin Healy. It was like a 5-4-1, a flat back 5 for a lot of that game. 4 pack of the field of 4 players, and then obviously Luke Palmer up top on his own, isolated. But only for those 2 moments of I suppose I think Leo Gaxa will claim he meant it. I've had the benefit of a replay. I mean, he has hit it with some venom, so it's either.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like, if you look at it, obviously, I'm sitting beside the stand tonight and on the town end side, and for all intents and purposes, it looks like a cross. But when you see like you say, the venom, if that's outside the box straight on, it looks like he's shot. I mean, he definitely. It's a hell of a cross to hit it at that pace and that speed. Now, look, he definitely try and claim it, but when you look at the replay, you're thinking, God, maybe there is a wee bit. He definitely has an argument to say, I meant it, because there was nobody.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think the fact that he's hit it with such venom would give him the license to say he to claim that he meant it at least. I mean, I've had the benefit of looking at the replay there, and obviously in real time, it looked a cracker from the stand side in any way, from that angle. But it comes in off the inside of the post as well. I mean, it's a cracking finish, and it's also important to mention as well that the Kerry defender is pulling his shirt pretty much the whole duration. Yeah. He's running down that flank as well, so he's had to beat that off and sort of get that shot in, and it's gone in off the underside, or sorry, the inside of the post. Like, the way I looked at it when I looked at it 3 or 4 times, Gally, was that it's either a cracking goal or a really poor cross. So I think he's going to change the form. In fairness, I don't think I personally. I was speaking to Stephen Todd as well, at the game, and he kind of suggested it may have been a fluke, but I have seen the replay. I mean, I'm going to be in the camp to say he meant it. I mean, I think it's hit with such venom, it's hit with such power. I think and I spoke to Leo Gaxa after the game in Cove last week. Obviously him being from Tralee, it was a good piece. He obviously didn't have the best of times down there earlier in the season, getting the red card, and some of the stuff that was said to him from the crowd, he kind of touched on, and he wasn't too pleased about that. So you always felt it was going to be a big performance from him today, and a big day for him. So I'm going to be in the camp to say that he meant it. I think it's like he has that in his locker, you know what I mean? And yeah, I just think that's and the game at that stage needed something like that, because the way Kerry had set up. I mean, now Kerry, in fairness, just before that goal that Gaxa scores, Darrell Horgan has to clear one off the line. I mean, Kerry and Enda Minogue had to make 2 really important saves in that first half as well. So it wasn't like Dundalk. Like, what troubled Dundalk was Kerry had set up. Kerry were so organised in that first half. I mean, they really stifled Dundalk, but we're also like Kerry had the better chances in that first half.
And what I noticed, that they moved the ball. They move really quick as a team. Like, for someone who's probably obviously got your Joe Adams early shots on, probably 2 early chances early in the match, which was probably well up for this game in particular. But I was surprised how fast they moved the ball. It didn't look that quick when we played them earlier in the season, but I was surprised how quick they move across. And I don't know if it's a surprise, but kind of like you say, the teams come to Dundalk, they maybe just want to set in. But Colin Healy obviously said, look, lads, counter-attack if we can. But they were really quick and sharp across. They weren't afraid to go at Dundalk, I suppose, probably the best way of putting it.
Yeah, absolutely not. No, and I mean, I think Colin Healy, in fairness to him, I think Kerry will nearly feel hard done by the outcome of today's game. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't a classic game by any stretch of the imagination. I thought Kerry came and done what they wanted to do, and done it to effect for a large part of that game. I mean, at the risk of repeating myself, they kind of sat deep and hit Dundalk on the break. Dundalk had very little to show in that first half. I mean, like, obviously before Gax's wonder goal, the only thing we really had was a Sean Keogh corner, which Vinnie Leonard kind of heads at the back post, and it's not really a chance. I mean, it's he's barely got contact on it, Leonard. You know what I mean? So it's a half chance at best. Enda Minogue's had to make 2 great saves, one from Palmer and one from So, and there was Horgan clears one off the line. That's like Minogue's finally beaten there. I mean, it looks that's seconds before Gaxa scores. Yeah, do you know what I mean? So, and to be fair, if Kerry go in at the break 1-0 ahead, I don't think too many people would have begrudged them or said that was an unfair reflection of that first half. I think Kerry, for all Dundalk's possession and Kerry sitting in, it was the visitors who had the better chances in that first half, and Enda Minogue had to be very alert on a couple of occasions. Adams, obviously Joe Adams, as you mentioned, had that chance early on as well. So that Minogue had to save also. So, I mean, it really like the game itself. You know, it wasn't great from a neutral's perspective, I'm sure, but it was crying out for some moment of, you know, either sheer fluke or sheer brilliance, and that's what we got directly after Horgan cleared it off the line. We directly at the other end got, you know, that goal from Gaxa, and it set us on our way then. I mean, in fairness to Dundalk, I think in that second half, you know, obviously Kerry still had a couple of chances, but I mean, we actually looked more likely to score in that second half then. I mean, and also we get the second goal through Darrell Horgan, another cracking goal, by the way. He makes the 3 subs at half time, they make their impact. And, you know, Gaxa could have had one at the very end there as well. You know, he hits the post, could have had a brace against his former club as well. So I think, in fairness, our game management was really good. And I thought it was the same in Cove last week as well. You know, when Shane Griffin gets that goal on 55 minutes in Cove, you've got the whole pretty much second half to kind of defend against, you know, one of the better sides in the division down in Cove. And I thought last week we managed the game very, very well. And I think that's been one of the features of Dundalk this year, is that, you know, they've you know, as a team, in fairness, it's a very hard division. You know, with the exception of maybe Cove and Bray, you know, who are obviously vying for Premier Division as well, the rest of the teams have really sat in and defended for, you know, pretty much the whole game. You only need to go back to the Athlone game and, you know, a few weeks ago. I was at that game, and you mean it was possibly one of the worst games I've ever had to witness. You know what I mean? It was poor stuff, and that wasn't down to Dundalk necessarily. That was the way Athlone sort of set up, and it made life very difficult for Dundalk. Longford the week beforehand. Now Dundalk got the goals that night, but Longford tried to do the same thing. I mean, it's a hard division to try and play tiki-taka football. You can't do it. So I think in Dundalk's defence, I mean, they've played football, like they've been dynamic. You know, they've played it on the ground when they can, but they've been dynamic and they've been a bit more direct when they've had to. So I think that's been a feature of Kieran Cullough's Dundalk this season. And I think, in fairness to them, I know we can criticise, we can critique certain performances and certain results and this, that, and the other thing, but they're top of the league after 16 games, undefeated, and 6 points clear at the top. I mean, I don't think we would have found a Dundalk supporter at the start of the year when we were staring a points deduction in the face.
Yes.
Who wouldn't have taken that? So I think, in fairness to Kieran Cullough and everybody at the club, it's been a real success story so far, and hopefully it continues that way in the second half of the season.
And just pick up on the, you know, it's probably unusual even if you're behind at halftime to even make 3 subs. But if you're winning at halftime and it's a tight game, and like you say, it's scrappy. Yeah, I know you compared it to the Europa League. That's probably the best way to sum it up. If anybody watched the Europa League the other night, like we said just off, you know, anything that did happen was in the middle of the park, but it was very little. But the 3 subs that come on, like, you know, there is a couple of, like, Mulligan's come on. He's been excellent. We talked about Parrish. We've probably been talking about Parrish of all season. But it's, I don't know if it's a brave decision, but to be even just to be 1-0 up and for it to be that kind of game, it's probably the right shout. I mean, we've talked about Owen Kenny over the last couple of weeks. You know, a Ruby coming in to start for him. Dean Ebby's come on later on as well. But, you know, he's obviously got Owen Kenny for a bit of pace, a bit of strength on the right-hand side when we were a bit of lacking. He's come in, look, he hasn't set the game alight, but I mean, he's definitely got at them a little bit more. But I mean, you know, the point I'm trying to make is we have that option of 3 subs, whereas, you know, years gone by, we wouldn't have done that. We mightn't have had the option of saying, right, we're going to have to really replace the whole way we play here. But now we can go like for like, and it's kind of been a feature of the 2 boys, Ken and Killers, as they come in, that they have this situation where almost every player can play in 2 different positions, and we have that like you know, we said it to Chris a couple of weeks ago. When would you have seen a Luke Mulligan coming in at half time in a game where you're 1-0 up and you're still looking for something? Young players like that wouldn't have got a crack. We've owned Kenny, who's kind of been out of he's probably been on the outskirts over the last couple of weeks. Maybe, look, I know we've given, no, I wouldn't say it's criticism, but we're probably just looking for a little bit more. We were calling for Ruby to come in, but it's great that we have that option. And I'm not saying to set the world alight when they come on, but we haven't lost anything. You know, we've changed like for like, and we've slightly improved, but we haven't. It's not like we're taking a massive risk in making those subs.
No, and I think that's something we have. I mean, and then younger players, in fairness to them, you know, they've raised the bar when they've had to. I mean, like Luke Mulligan could have scored today. I mean, he had a couple of shots. He had one that had to be saved. I mean, from the Kerry goalkeeper. I mean, Andy Parrish, I'm sure you've mentioned him in the podcast. I mean, such a good footballer, like on the ball. Still has a lot of development to go, and he will develop into a really good player, no doubt about it. But you can see him on the ball. Some of his touch and some of his one-touch movement is fantastic. Yeah. I mean, Vinnie Leonard, I mean, everyone keeps saying it's very hard to believe that he's just turned 17. I mean, he looks like he's playing in that back four for a decade, basically. You know what I mean? He's one of the more accomplished members of that team at the moment, and more reliable players in that team at the moment. But to add to your point in terms of players playing in certain positions. I mean, you've got Ade Dervin playing right full today. I mean, I think Ade Dervin's played everywhere apart from goals for the Dundalk this season. I mean, and I suppose that kind of epitomises what Kieran Kilduff was kind of after, was a player like Ade Dervin, somebody who's not afraid to get their hands dirty and throw themselves in different positions when they've had to. And Dundalk need that because, you know, obviously they've got a good squad of players, but you've also got budget constraints and you need players who can fill in those holes. I mean, even look at Peter Cherry, he's a goalkeeping coach. He's also a sub-keeper, filled in for 11 games and done really, really well. I mean, that's kind of where we are as a club anyway. And we need that sort of togetherness, I suppose, and sort of, you know, roll your sleeves up attitude from everybody, I think. And I think that's what Kieran said at the start of the year. And, you know, going back to when I first, you know, spoke to him back in like November, I mean, he said that's what he was after. He wanted players who were going to roll their sleeves up and not be afraid to get their hands dirty and play in different positions, maybe where they're not as comfortable. Yeah. And they've done that. And I think Ade Dervin, it's not just Ade, obviously, there's other players who've done it as well, who've played elsewhere. I mean, but players have done it when they've had to. You know, and players have taken opportunities when they've had. I mean, like Gibemi Ruby really had to bite his lip and really wait at the sidelines for his opportunity. He gets it against Bray. He's only on the game, 30 seconds. Gets what could possibly be, what could turn out to be the most important goal of the season. Who knows? Against Bray Wanderers. Gets a start, wins his place in the team, follows it up with a stellar performance in Cove last week, sets up the first one, scores the second, and looks really good. Made himself undroppable, basically. So he starts today, didn't get a goal on the score sheet today, but made himself undroppable. Kieran Kilduff. And in fairness to Kieran, he's given players that platform to show me what you can do. You know, whereas in previous regimes, maybe it was very hard, as you say, for players to kind of break into it. And even when they were performing, and it led to frustration. Like you look at John Martin tonight getting a hat trick for
I just heard that before we started hearing on the radio coming in.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like John Martin couldn't really get it. Like no matter what he did, it seemed at that stage he couldn't get it running the team under Stephen O'Donnell. So I mean, there wasn't really that space for players to kind of make that claim and stake that claim in the team. And obviously with the change at the club and everything that's happened around it, that's been one of the positives. And obviously younger players getting their opportunity as well. I mean, it's so great to even see like the young TJ Malloy again on the bench today. Yeah, I know he didn't get on, but you know, a great lad who has got minutes under his belt. You know, he's only in transition year, or he's just finishing transition year. It's incredible to think about it. And you know, it does your heart good to see that, because these boys will, by the time they even hit 18, they're going to have so much senior experience of men's football under their belts, and that's only going to stand them in good stead. I mean, that can only be good for them.
While we're talking about senior players, we're going to bring in senior podcaster. And I tell you, Kevin Doherty's favourite League of Ireland cameraman as well. Christopher,
you done me rightly there.
Diane just gave me this perfect setup for that, so I'll just wait here, just bide me time. Chris, you're obviously in Drogheda tonight again. The first question I had, we're as far as kind of Darrell Hogan's goal in the match, but have you seen Gax's?
Yeah, like I text you at half time and I was like, oh, that's a cross, isn't it?
What we were talking about was he's hit it with some, like Niall used the word, he's hit it with such venom.
Oh, he has.
Yeah. Like it doesn't look to be a cross, but you look, I mean, you don't know it. But for me, I'm on the Niall Newbury fence. I think he's actually meant to actually wallop it. No, I don't think he's meant for it to go in the top corner.
Here's the thing. If it was anyone else but Gaxa or Wardy, you'd think I was definitely across. But with both those players, they just have it in their locker. You don't know. Like I say, he certainly winds his foot up. It's an interesting thing because like in the lead up to that, to the goal, is it Ade Dervin kind of pokes it onto him, and initially I thought there was a stoppage in the Drogheda match, so I was kind of watching live anyway. So I was watching just as that goal went in, and I thought, why is he running down a blind alley? Because there was two players with him. I just thought that would have been better off being recycled, go again over the other side. And like I said, he fairly winds up that foot and just puts it in with aplomb into the box. And look, I'm sure Niall was probably talking to Leo, and it's one of them, you know, hey, if you buy a ticket, you could win a lotto. So, you know, drill it in and see what happens.
Yeah, Niall was saying
every day of the week.
Yeah, they were pulling out his jersey, so maybe I'd say just pure frustration. He just said, "I'm going to absolutely just," because if you look at it, there's nobody in the box. He hasn't looked up. There's nobody there. So, and if there is somebody there, I'm choosing not to see them because I think he's actually went to do it. But you know, his jersey's been pulled. He's been hassled, like you said, two players. So I think he's just wound up and just absolutely led it and see what happened. Now, look, it's the pair, like, you know, if you put the goalkeeper on a ladder, he doesn't get to it. It goes right over, like where I'm sitting. I'm just on the town end. I'm literally just across, like right across, parallel from the box, from the goal line. Like it's sensational.
He meant it 100%.
The
thing about Leo Gaxa with that game, everything that surrounded Leo around that game against Kerry.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember actually being down in Tralee that night when he got the red card, and I was speaking to a fella in a sports shop the day after, and we were chatting about the game, and he said with Leo Gaxa that the thoughts around that game were he was either going to get sent off or score a hat-trick. That's just the kind of player he is. And I spoke to him after Cove, and he wasn't pleased at the reaction and the response he got from the fans down in Tralee at the start of the year. I mean, I just think he was. You could even say, as you mentioned, the way his shirt's been pulled, even on the byline there, I think he was just a man on a mission today. I really do. I think he wanted to make some sort of statement, and you do that 100 times.
Of course,
it goes nowhere 99% of the time, obviously. But I just think when I look back at it, I thought initially, to be honest, lads, I thought absolute cross, no way, no doubt. But if you're hitting if you're a winger and you're hitting a cross, you're not hitting that cross with that much venom because it's not going anywhere if you do. So that's why I said to you, it's either a cracking goal or a really, really bad cross. Now, I think it's the former. I think he's meant that. Now, it's going to be one of those that we're never going to agree on. I don't think it's always going to be a case of did he mean it. He's obviously going to say he meant it.
Well, if we keep building it up, he'll definitely say it.
Yeah, I'm going to say he meant it. I'm sticking to my guns. I think he means that every day of the week. Goal of the season.
It's funny, Niall, because I actually remember Kieran's comments after that. It was maybe it was on his return, but I think after that sending off down in Kerry, he kind of apologized for losing the head in that game, and he let his emotions get back to him. And I think his words were to Kieran is like he wants to prove himself back in his team, and he had a nice bit of form when he came back in. So maybe there is a little redemption arc in this game in the reverse of that fixture that he comes on and scores a worldie like that. So look, maybe we will give him the credit that he definitely meant it.
We are giving him the credit.
All right, you bought the t-shirt.
And then of course we have we had our subs at halftime. We've taken a breath from that worldie, and then from a young, I suppose, a whippersnapper like Leo Gaxa to Darryl, whose middle name now is turning back the clock. I think that's what we're going to have to call him every week. He's absolutely, we mentioned Owen Kenny. Owen Kenny's gone down the right. It's been the cross been delivered. It's been clear, but it's fall to Darryl Hogan. Like it's we said last week, it was like a young Darryl Hogan and Cove. The goal he's taken last week. Like this was peak Darryl Hogan. This is what Darryl Hogan is all about. When he's not on the wing, that's where you want him. In or around, twisting defenders. He's turned left and right again. We've done the similar last week in Cove. And he's absolutely, again, I've had a cracking view of it. The keeper's not anywhere. Like, I don't know how close it looks on the camera. I haven't looked at the replay. The keeper's not even near it. It's an absolute, it'll pale into insignificance because of what Gax has done in the first half. But it's an outright on its own. Like, you're probably talking about the two best strikes of the season. They're right up there with anything.
It's nearly unfortunate.
It's a sensational strike.
Yeah. It's nearly unfortunate for Darryl Hogan in a sense because, I mean, the last two performances, I mean, in Cove, he was absolutely out of this world in Cove. But the gloss was maybe taken off him by Gibemi Ruby's impact and the fact that he got the goal against Bray 7 days before that, and that was kind of where the talk was. But Darryl Hogan was absolutely superb in Cove last week. He comes up with a superb goal tonight again, and obviously let's not forget he clears one off the line. Just right before Gatsa hits that worldie. I mean, it's
technically a long distance assist.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, if that goes in. It's 1-0 to Kerry. It's a different game altogether. So Darryl Hogan was superb tonight again. And I mean, you can't underestimate, players have come and gone at the club and stuff like that. And obviously there's a lot of, a big turnover in the squad with the relegation and the financial, turmoil that we found ourselves in towards the end of last year. And by the way, are still in, in fairness, let's not kid ourselves. But Darryl Hogan has stayed and he's really put his hand in his heart and put his head, he was the first player to come out publicly and say, I'm staying here. I'm going to make this right. I'm going to get this club back into the Premier Division. Darryl Hogan's got 17 caps for Ireland. He's played in the Championship in England. He's played in the SPL in Scotland. He's a top-class player. And you can just see, even from the games he's played, I mean, he's far too good for this level. And that's only to our benefit. Because some of the stuff he's doing, and it's rolling back the years. It's because of the level he's playing at here in the first division, it's like watching prime 2016 Darrell Horgan at times this year, because it's a joy to watch for all of us, because it's fantastic. And I mean, the word legend is probably used a bit, too operatively or too frequently for my taste sometimes. But Darrell Horgan is a Dundalk legend, on and off the field, the way he carries himself, the way he conducts himself. I think today was another great performance from Darrell Horgan, and I think nearly in a weird sort of way in the last 2 weeks has fallen under the radar because of other moments like Gax's today and Ruby's impact against Cove. I mean, he's been superb again for us in recent weeks.
The thing is about Darrell, the experience that he has, he won't even care that he's gone under the radar. He's happy enough. He wants that. He wants, some, like, not saying that anybody else would be looking for the attention, but he's happy enough to plod along, do what he has to do. That experience, that old kind of head, not an old head, Jesus, like he's plenty of years left in the League of Ireland, but he just has that, he has those games in, like you say, 17 caps.
Yeah.
He's played one level below the Premier League. It's not like, it's a sensational football. And he always has been. I still remember signing when he signed from Cork. An unbelievable catch to get himself. Ronan Finn along that times were just sensational signings for Dundalk at the time. And yeah, it's great to see, because we were worried last year that, would we get kind of back to that, and maybe the fitness level maybe at the Premier Division last year, but he's definitely what a player to have, like himself. Abe Dervin as well, looking to stay later on in the season as well. Look, these players are going to get you where you need to be for 2026, and absolutely sensational. Chris, we were talking about, again, at the risk of kind of rinse and repeat every podcast, although we had some sensational goals tonight, and there's been sensational moments off the line, Enda Minogue put off some great saves as well, two in particular. Again, we're talking about, are we lacking a little bit? Is there something, it's not a great match again overall. I don't know if we're I see just telling night before you come on, you see message that maybe we need a new signing in the transfer window. I don't think that's it. I don't think it's going to be an in and out situation. I think we're going to get anybody in. I don't think we're going to add many to this squad with the young players that we have. But we're hoping that what are we in? How many games are we in? 15, 16 games. What are we in the season?
16,
to be kind of still talking about we can do better. I don't know what's worrying, but it's just something we maybe just need to keep an eye on. Maybe as like the coaches probably know that we've made 3 subs at half time without thinking about it. It's just something that maybe us as fans, we just need to maybe rein in the expectations. I don't know. Maybe we're just expecting maybe too much of these boys.
Yeah, possibly. It's tough when you're coming down, I think, from the Premier Division as well. You're still thinking back to that level, and on that, like Darrell's second goal, the second goal tonight. The thing I liked about that was the little drop of the shoulder from Darrell, and any young footballers have a real close look at that, because he not only drops the shoulder, but he's looking where the space is at the same time, realized that the defenders are backed off and said, well, all right, if you're going to just give me this much space, then I'll just bend this in, but it wasn't like you've seen a lot of young players and they get into that position and their first thought is to protect the ball and they want to recycle it. Darrell's first thought was, hang on a second, I have space here, swivels around and faces his opponent. It's you have to be a brave player to be able to do that. And I think fair play to him. And like I say, it shows his quality. And that's the other thing. I think there's quality in the likes of Darrell, in the likes of Leo Gaxa. Dervin, we've probably seen a far better player than we seen last year. You were seeing probably the player we wanted to see, that you'd seen in flashes last year against us. But I think probably temper the expectations at the club. Like Niall only just said there recently, we have to remember where we came from as a club, that we were so close to oblivion. And although we probably have a reasonable budget for this division, it's probably still not the biggest. I'd say probably Cove have a bigger budget than us this year.
Yeah,
I think it's down a lot to recruitment, and you'll probably hear from stories at the end of the season, if it's a successful season, you'll probably hear Ken and Kieran, and they were touched on a wee bit pre-season with us, Gally. They were all about a caliber of player to bring in. It wasn't just about ability, it was about mentality. And there was to be no passengers, because in the first division on a smaller budget, you can't carry players. And perhaps we done that a little. I think maybe in the last 2 years in the Premier Division, we carried some players. If they didn't show up, there was no heart in it for whatever in this. Like towards, I think in the first division, it's a very honest division. You need to give your full worth. Can all of these players in this team step up if there was a promotion next year? Probably not. But I think the key thing is that Ken and Kieran are getting the best of them for the division that we're in currently. Some will step up, some won't. But I think if you look around the rest of the division, and I suppose that this whole conversation sparks off when you look at what's happening at to Athlone and things like that, where players it looks like are going to become available. I suppose what Kieran and Ken will find hardest is if you bring in somebody now, that has to make an impact to your team. And then you're also going to dislodge somebody from this unit that has been created. And that's going to be a real hard thing for them to think about. And I don't think it will be something that Ken or Kieran will do on a whim. Kind of say, "Oh, is that player available? Yeah, just bring him in."
Yeah, I think the days of probably squad players are gone for this particular squad. I don't think we need them. We have
this division,
100%,
absolutely. Yeah, you can't carry it. You can't carry extra players like that and be paying wages and not getting a return out of these players. And I think when you look at the bar one or two players that we would talk about would be the likes of the Darrell and Ade Irvin, who are probably an exceptional quality, and the rest of them are young lads that they want to give a chance to football from. And there's probably the return on investment on those players is one, you either have a very good player to step up a division and they'll grow with you as a club, or two, there could be a financial return to them if the club was to sell them later on. And that's the caliber of player. And there's not too many of them young lads that you would say they would cherry pick to come in. So I'm not too sure if we're going to see any big recruitments. It'll be a real choice signing if something does happen, I think.
I think it'll just be, I'd agree with that entirely, Chris. I think it'll just be, I don't see us bringing in any players for the sake of it. I don't think that's where we are.
No.
Like financially either. I mean, there's been a few rumours floating around, and I mean, there was one about Ryan O'Kane there like a few weeks back, and I asked Kieran directly.
I asked Ryan on Monday night, and he said no.
So I asked Kieran directly because purely because it had been sent to me by several people during the week, and I said, look, I told those people that I'd asked them. I asked the man himself on Friday, and I asked him a couple of weeks ago, and Kieran's words were, look, it's the first I've heard of it, and a few of the rumours floating around as well. And then I'm kind of thinking like these rumours are always going to float around, and Dundalk's an awful town for it, but like we haven't got the financial capital to bring in some of these players anyway, even if we wanted to. I mean, and that's just where we are. And I genuinely agree with Andy as well. It'll be a one out, one in kind of job. It's not going to be.
And we still have, Norman Garbutt obviously is still a long-term injury as well.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. I mean, Norman Garbutt, Ethan Vaughan haven't played yet, and they're due back. Well, Kieran's hopeful that they'll be coming back in and around after the mid-season break. They'd be like two new signings in their own right because they haven't played. Gibemi Arubi at the moment is kind of like a new signing because he hasn't really played. I mean,
100%.
So like, there's that as well, and. I mean, yeah, sure, they'll probably bring in one player, maybe two at tops, but I can't see any sort of overhaul of the squad in the mid-season. I don't think it'd be wise, as you say, with a team that's kind of been so successful and has gone unbeaten. And let's not forget they're unbeaten in 16 games and have won the majority.
And I don't even think, obviously when you're in a kind of transfer window the last couple, I don't think anybody looked at maybe, we need to maybe do better here. We need to not get rid of someone. That's the wrong term, but we need to move someone on. We're not even in that position. Like the squad, for what we're doing, the squad is excellent. Unless somebody comes in and actually wants to take a player, I don't really see the need to get anybody. Barring a touch with a really bad run of injuries. But even if you take anybody out of that starting lineup injured,
it has to be an improvement.
There's enough there. Yeah, there's enough there to get around it. I think the boys have been really shrewd. We mentioned this really early in the year. They've been really shrewd with their signings, and I think. It's only a matter of time before we get a stupid scoreline. They absolutely put a team to absolutely pace the wall with them. Now they're just not getting there yet, but they will. There will come a day when there's a stupid scoreline for this team to put past someone. But they're ticking along nicely. Yes, you'd like to see a little bit more, but we can't be. I suppose we can't be too kind of giving it either. I mean, like I say, we're unbeaten. God, like, you know, when you consider point, like not even closing, you even forget, and Niall said it, the point deduction that was looming over them as well. You forget all that. It seems so long ago. But you know, like unless somebody comes in to take the likes of, I don't want to be throwing anybody names because all the famous managers in the league are listening. But you know, like your Sean Keoghs, your Vinnie Leonards, you know, like Sean Keogh for me, you're probably talking one of the best left backs in the country already. You know, he's sensational.
I think that's where the only time you'll probably see something, though, Gally, is, you know, you look at some of these young lads and there could be somebody that could even be potentially outside the league. And that might force the hands of the lads. And that's probably all you'll see. It will be a replacement for that. But I think I'd still be surprised. You know, maybe if you were looking at a lot of the younger players, you'd probably love to see them play a full season. And now, considering, you know, this time last year, like, were we only starting to see Sean Keogh coming into this team?
Yeah.
At that stage, he had a horrible start as well.
It's kind of incredible, really, to think about it. I think I was speaking to Padraig McGowan about this. I think it was down in Limerick. I mean, Sean Keogh was there all along last year. And you look at the problems we had in that position, 100% entire season. You know, Peter Cherry was at the club for more than half the season last year. And you look at the problems we had in that position. And even at that, I mean, you can't tell me that the likes of, you know, Enda Minogue, who would have been available, you know, a year before we signed them, or anyone else, I mean, like, wouldn't have been better options than we brought in. I mean, it's just, there was a lot of that poor decision making that was made. And like, we don't want to get into that because that's gonna be a whole different podcast in itself. But I mean, something that's changed in the recruitment has been, I think, you know, in relation to, like, not just bringing in players for the sake of it. Obviously, you mentioned 5 players have left that Lone Town or leaving at Lone Town. But Kieran Clough's been very meticulous in his recruitment. I mean, he wants to sign characters, not just players. You know, the first thing he done was obviously keep Ed Dervin. You can see why Ed Dervin was one of the few who were kept. The club. I mean, he's epitomised everything that Dundalk have done this year. Mayowa and Amasahoon, likewise. You know, Darrell Horgan. I mean, the list is, I could go on and I'm leaving it. I don't want to leave it out, lads, but the list
strong spine to that team, though, isn't it? Something to build on and everything else that comes around that. And then you think, like, when we were all picking probably starting lineups, like, Vinnie Leonard was probably nowhere near that team.
He probably wasn't even on the bench.
And he's probably the most consistent centre half we've had this year. Like, we're now probably talking who partners with him rather than, you know, Vinny could be on the bench and you know, that's a token thing you're thrown to a 17-year-old. No, he deserves a place in this team, and is probably our most consistent centre half all this season. Like, so very much like you just said there, Niall, about Sean Keogh was actually the solution to that position all along that was in house. You know, Vinny Leonard is just created.
But we said this. I mean, we said this on the podcast, I think last year and the year before possibly, about like. Every other club, even in the Premier, was giving these boys of that ilk, like in their underage teams, opportunities in the first team. We weren't doing it. And now you see the emergence of the Sean Keoghs, the Vinnie Leonards, you know, no doubt the TJ Malloys to come as well. You know, the Sean Spates or the next ones after that. You can see these players are, if you're good enough, you're old enough. Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean? So I don't know. I mean, like, I think it's something we've kind of fallen on, and especially with the budget constraints we've had. I mean,
I think that's been the best thing. I think the budget has forced Kieran's hand on that, and we've had to work on it. And he's probably, like you just said, Niall, I think he sat down probably with John Temple and said, "These are the ones I really want to keep," and it was it was the A. Dervins, it was Darrell Horgans. Mayowa, if we can keep him, but we probably need to prove to him a couple of sign-ins around this league to show what was there, because you know you think Mayowa was easy going to take the step up to a Premier Division team, but thankfully we were able to hold on to him and anchor him here. And when you go out and you get Indine Ebe, last year's top goal scorer, joint top goal scorer, like, you know, and like you say, Enda Minogue, probably the best keeper in the first division last year. They're all statement signings. Yeah. And then they probably got halfway through and said, well, now what do we do? Because that's the majority of our budget gone. All right, now we need to give you the chance. Who can we trust in this? And And that's where suddenly we see Shane Tracy's, getting chance now. Vinnie Leonard, like you say, taking those chance. Mulligan there tonight. So it's really good. TG Malloy, has come in and really taken his chances when he's had it as well. And you forget how young these lads are, but it's a real throwback to where you'd like to be as an academy, and where Dundalk has been lacking, and we lamented it over all the success that this club has had. That's the one thing that's been missing, and we were like, "Oh, how are we still thinking back to Tiernan Mulvanna being the last good local prospect that's come through here and took that step up?" We should have had that conveyor belt, and somehow everything was gone. But now we're starting to see, we're reaping the benefits. I know, when Senna Mullen was here, we had great expectation for it there, but it's shown he's kind of kicking on in his own career now as well.
Yeah. But also you see, Chris, like with the other clubs in the league as well, like these are your assets.
Yeah.
Like these are your assets. Like
the Mason Melias has really proven that now, haven't they?
Like as good a player as Darrell Horgan is, and as good a player as Leo Gaxa is, and as good a player as Enda Minogue is, or Ed Dervin, if those players leave tomorrow or next season, you're not getting really anything for them. That's the way that's the way this league works, and always has worked.
Yeah.
But if Vinnie Leonard goes somewhere at 18, or TJ Malloy goes somewhere at 18, I mean, Sean Spate, or Sean Keogh goes next year somewhere, and you have them on the contract, you're getting a good chunk of money for them.
Yeah, and they've all got development fees too.
Yeah, all those development fees. And you look at players moving on, and you're getting like Bowes are still getting fees for bleeding Matt Doherty, like, you know what I mean? All those years later. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy, but like that's how like Gavin Bazunu, Shamrock Rovers. I mean, that's what you're looking at. Evan Ferguson, if he gets back into form, Bowes will start getting money. If he gets another move again, I mean. That's where you're kind of like Mason Melia, no doubt, will be the next one. Like he's obviously got a big move to Spurs now, and who's to say where he'll go in the game? You don't know, and some Pats will reap the benefits of that.
Yeah,
you nail these boys in now, and that's where your money comes in. Do you know what I mean? Because Dundalk have really missed the boat on this, as you mentioned, Chris, in recent years. Really missed the boat on it, and it's probably the only criticism you'd have of the great Stephen Kenny era is that we never really. It's very hard for young players to break into that team. I get it, but we never had that structure in place really, and it's been a real blot in the copybook of the club really. And I think it's only now we're starting to see, and it's nearly a case, as you say, Chris, a hand being forced. Yeah, where you nearly had to play these boys now because, like, let's face it, these boys weren't getting opportunities last year. Yet they were here all along, and you can't tell me these boys wouldn't have been better than what we saw last year. Because some of the players who played last year, with great respect, I mean, I'm not going to be too harsh on them, but you know what I mean? Like, they weren't up to scratch, basically. And they probably wouldn't be up to scratch for the first division either. So,
the thing about it is, as well, Niall, if we hadn't been given some of these players maybe a chance last year as well, how much further down their progress could they be now? Yeah, you think of, because Sean Keogh had such a strong end to last season. Yeah. Look how well he's progressed into this season. And that's because he was given the chance last year. But why wasn't he given the chance to start of this season?
Yeah. Like you don't want to pick on players because it's not particularly fair. But I mean, like Jamie Walker was signed last year as a left back, and he's back playing in the lower leagues in Scotland now. And best of luck to him, of course. But I mean, like he was in his early 20s, I believe. So I mean, was he 20, 21 or something like that? I mean, surely whoever was at the club at that stage last year should have been saying, surely you're better off trying to develop your own player 100%. In that position. Like, surely you're better off. Like, what's the point in bringing in a lad with the great respect in the Scottish lower leagues, which is obviously an extremely poor level, and you're bringing them over here and they're way off the pace, and it's not fair on the player either because they're so off the pace. It's untrue. Like, you know what I mean? It's ridiculous. But like, surely you're better off having, as you say, identifying somebody in the club. Surely identifying that Sean Keogh has shown promise in the underage setup. Get him in, give him games, see how he does. Like, I mean, how many players did we play left back last year?
Everyone bar Sean Keogh open stage.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so exactly. So I mean, like, it kind of boggles the mind in many respects, and I think it's just something. I don't want to make the point of last season to go into it because we'd rather forget it, of course. But I mean, it's just going back to the wider picture of the kind of the boat being missed on that sort of giving those young lads chances and our academy players chances, because that's where your future is, that's where your money is, and that's where your assets are. And and every other club in the league does it.
Yeah.
So I don't see why Dundalk were any different, even when they were doing really well in the Premier.
this also could be one of those opportunities, because I think there's definitely a mood change within the league, and in particular outside of the league, when you look at, you know, the money that Mason Melia is going to go to Spurs for, and, you know, there's talk around numerous Shamrock Rovers players as well, with potential moves. Like, I think evaluation of Irish players playing within the domestic league now has suddenly changed. And now is the time to really develop those players, because, like you say, from having assets that won't cost you an arm and a leg, and you're getting them here, I think now clubs hopefully are kind of start looking now, going, well, hang on a second, if you can get over $1 million for a player, like, what's this guy worth? Gone are the days of, you know, a nominal fee being paid, and Danny Mandrow putting in sneaky little clauses into the contract so he can make moves. Like, you know, I think those valuations of players are suddenly going to change quite a lot in this league. And as I say, if we're sitting on a number of these players, whether we can just develop them within this team and keep them at Dundalk and grow as a club with them, or there's an opportunity for the players that they want to explore and the club want to explore down the line, that's mutually benefit for everybody, well, then that's great. But it's great to see that we're now in that position, and we're not playing catch up, which too many times, I think, in the not so recent past, that's where Dundalk have been. They've gone, oh, why didn't we do that? Why didn't we invest in this? Why didn't we think to do these things? And it's very hard to catch up, because what you'll find now is, on the back of probably Mason Melia's transfer, there's a number of Premier Division clubs have snatched up all these young players in the hope that one or two of them will make a fee back to pay for probably a whole academy that's come through. So, you know, it's great that we do have these lads. Whether it was through planning or pure luck, I'm not too sure. But look, we stumbled across a couple of great players, and you know, it's good for a change to be talking about positives like that.
We've waited so long to have these positive talks, because even though we've been through enough captain positivity steps we're missing, but we're trying to keep it tracking on. I think there's not. Look, you know, look, we're top of the league. I thought we don't have any right to be given out, but we're not complaining. We're just kind of looking. You know, I think the expectations is a little bit high, and rightly so, maybe in some ways. But look, we'll swiftly move on as well. We don't want to keep people too late. I know Niall's probably wrecked from doing all his work now, trying to write up a match report of that. But we'll go straight into a man of the match. I was looking quickly. We've a lot of. It's probably the most variation we've had in a couple of weeks. We'll start with yourself, Niall, as you are the guest of honour tonight. We'll start with your man of the match. But yeah, there is a bit of variation. So there's wiggle room there for someone to win a slice of pizza.
Yeah,
it's not a slice of pizza, a full pizza. Stepping back, it's
Johnny gets the pizza and he gives out a slice.
Slices. It's just slices now. It's first division.
The budget's been cut even on the 10N podcast. But yeah. So I think man of the match, there's a few contenders. I mean, defensively, Dundalk managed the game really well today. I mean, Enda Minogue makes a few good saves, which are crucial. Didn't have much to do in the second half, mind. But in that first half, you know, for a lad who's missed 11 games with a broken finger, he's come back and he's done really well. I mean, he was composed in Cove last week, and in that first half today, he had to make 2 or 3, you know, important saves. Vinnie Leonard, you know, really a real colossus at the back as well. Sean Keogh, obviously, Ed Dervin playing out of position, you know, right full, Mayowa in the backs. I mean, but Leo Gaxa gets that, you know, worldy of a goal. I mean, it's to me, it's a goal that he's a contender. You know, I just, you know, I just got a text from Stephen Todd, who's now changed his mind and said he definitely meant it. So that's good. But
that's 2 t-shirts.
He hadn't seen the replay. He hadn't seen the replay, in fairness, at that stage. But I think my man of the match, I think just for, you know, on both sides of the pitch, I just think football games like this are defined on moments. And I think Darrell Horgan's impact, you know, at one end of the pitch to the other today was colossal. For me, it's Darrell Horgan man of the match today. I think I probably would have given it to a Ruby last week, which would have been harsh on Darrell Horgan. But I think Darrell gets the nod tonight, and I think he's a deserved man of the match for me. But I'm sure there's a few other contenders that could be there as well.
Yeah, I think it's all on Darrell. I think he did sneak it last week again, and we were kind of saying Ruby can feel hard done by after scoring and setting up, but then Darrell will say, "Well, I scored and set up one too." But I think it's the consistency we're seeing now, and that's probably what we wanted to see from Darrell, is that level of consistency, because we know he has that ability in him, and it's very hard to show that continuously in, game out. And it's no surprise that we probably got back-to-back victories in two crucial games, and Darrell's been at the forefront of both of them. So yeah, look, same for myself, it's Darrell Horgan again.
So does that make mine obsolete?
Well,
look, I mean,
because you were presented, I actually get to come in early. It's nice for a change.
I would have Darrell Horgan, definitely. I would have. I tell you how I probably would have went for. I would have probably went for Mayowa. Now, it's been a while since I probably gave Mayowa man of the match. I just thought he was a colossal at the back, but I will not argue with Darrell Horgan. Leo Gack's a special mention as well. Minogue, I think anybody that has been mentioned, and look, I think Keoghan Parks was excellent as well. Mayowa, for me, he was just a rock at the back. I actually think probably for the first time he's outshone Vinnie Leonard. Not that Vinnie Leonard's in the poor game, just Mayowa just seemed to be everything. Just seemed to be taking everything down, clearing his line. He actually nearly had a chance at a shot, I think, late in the game at one stage. But I won't argue with Darrell Horgan. Mayowa would be my pick, but look, I'm happy enough to go be at number 2-1. I mean, Darrell, like the fact that we're still a Dundalk team in a league playing League of Ireland football, and we're still giving out pizzas to people for Darrell Horgan to be man of the match in a Dundalk jersey. I think that's a celebration alone to give away a pizza. But yeah, look, I wouldn't argue with anything he's just said. But yeah, Darrell Horgan, we'll go with that. We're just looking through the names here. Who have we got? Trying to think of someone who we haven't smashed the pizza at over the last couple of weeks. Will we go with Connell Megan?
Yeah.
That's who we got. Connell, get yourself down to Tony's, give them a shout. We'll let them know the name. If you want to order chips, Coca-Cola, that is, 7-Up, Sprite, chicken tenders, whatever you have in yourself. Chris,
this nearly took a weird turn.
We need to have a quick second on your lucky charm for Kevin Doherty and Drogland. Really? What's going on? There's definitely a link between their form and new video in their games.
Lads, I have not seen them lose yet this year. It's ridiculous. Every time, and Kevin Doherty just said, there's my lucky charm now. I'll tell you what.
We need to get that on the table.
We were close to a proper League of Ireland punch-up there tonight between both managers. So Rennie and Kevin went at it at the end. Kevin ran over to celebrate in front of the fans, and Rennie wasn't too happy that he never turned up for a handshake, which he walked over to the bench for, and the two of them squared up to
first, haven't you? Yeah, you got to give the handshake first. Yeah. Jesus, look.
Yeah, absolutely went to town. I heard Rennie shouting out, "Oh, you're the big drugs man now, are we?" So it was getting real, And then I noticed, wait, Stevie O'Donnell's in the middle of this too. So it was getting
proper scrap, yeah.
Oh, it was getting proper tasty there at the end. But yeah, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. It's bad enough we're in the first division, but if I have to go every second week and watch Drogheda win every time, lads, it's absolute heartbreak. They're still singing so many songs about us, which makes it even worse. Like, would you ever?
That's because they know you're in the country. Yeah,
they're not even in the same division. Like, would you ever? But no, that's
rent-free, Chris. Rent-free.
That's it.
100%. I'm living rent-free in Kevin's head, I think. I think the other interesting thing tonight, obviously, Cove won, just kind of held on for victory against Athlone. But Bray losing tonight is a big blow to them, in particular. And we thought that, probably Bray and Cove would be right up there with us. Probably shows how much, we kind of talked about, Wexford will probably get much stronger when the likes of Aaron Dobbs come back and stuff like that, as well. And that's probably maybe even kicked on and let the likes of Mikey Rowe and that probably a little bit more freedom now. So I really find that game next week could be quite hard for us. It could be quite tough. I think the last time we played them, they were kind of in a bad position with it, so many injuries, so many people kind of filling in positions for them. Right now, they seem to have a lot more players back, and they're coming from behind. They're winning matches now, as well. So that'd be a small worry there. That themselves and Treaty seem to be able to pull a few results out. I think Treaty had a big win tonight, as well, over Longford. So, like, there's one or
one, I think.
there's one or two teams that are coming into a wee bit of form now. That this could be the way this division goes. That we've seen a run from Bray previously, or we've seen a run from Wexford now. It's hard to know. Like, I ain't no expert on this division, but my only fear is that we seem to be coming into play Wexford just at a time where they've got a few players back and they've hit a little bit of form. So that won't be an easy fixture next week when we go down there now.
No, it won't be. No, I mean, I think every game has been like that, in fairness. And I know, like, I was speaking to Andy before we got on. I mean, you nearly feel silly asking Kieran the same questions nearly every week at this stage about the next game, because he has to give the same response, and it's just because it's the reality. I mean, Wexford will give us a tough game down there, and it's the last game before the break as well, so there's that too. I mean, look, we're in the driving seat. I mean, we're 6 points clear tonight. I mean, with a superior goal difference as well to boot. I mean, it's a great position to be in, and if we can keep that 6 point gap in place for that mid-season break, like, that could psychologically make the difference. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it really could. And because once you get to that point of that mid-season, I mean, that's when you're really starting to look ahead and you're really starting to dream, whether you're in the Premier or the First Division, wherever you are, and whatever your targets are. I mean, Dundalk obviously had to remain very coy and very sort of, cards close to the chest kind of job at the beginning of the season. I mean, Kieran, I was asking Kieran before a ball was kicked, because the bookmakers have made Dundalk the favourites or among the favourites, and he wasn't really biting on that. I mean, he said to me at that stage, wait till after the first round of games. So that was 9 games. I think the 9th game was UCD in Belfield. We beat them. I asked him that night, are you now the favourites? He said, ask me at the halfway point. So I suppose he's constantly kicking the can down the road in that respect. So, I mean, I will ask him again now after Wexford next week if we get the result. I might ask him if we don't. He might be in the best form. So
No.
It might be the question he wants to hear. But if we do get the result, I'll ask him again and see how further he kicks that can down the road and see what the crack is. But I think we have to be considered the strong favourites to get promotion now. I mean, I'm not trying to put pressure on the boys because of where we've come from. I mean, we absolutely know right. And I do.
The past few results have been really important, though, haven't it?
Yeah,
they have been. The win in Cove was a real 6 pointer. Results tonight have worked in our favour again. I mean, like the last week's game in particular was a real 6 pointer. But also, let's not forget, I know it was disappointing because we'd taken the lead against Bray and Oriel, but getting that last stoppage time goal against Bray as well, that could turn out to be a crucial as goal as any. I know we were kind of, a little bit 50-50 on it because we probably felt we could have won the game, but I mean, we were 2-1 down in theory in stoppage time, and we draw 2-2 against one of your main rivals. So that's got to be seen as a positive. And then you followed up with a win in Cove the following week in very difficult circumstances. So, I mean, the last few weeks have been very good for Dundalk in that respect. And I think if we can follow it up now with the last game before the break in Wexford next week with a good result, positive result, it sets us up really nicely for the second half of the season.
I think if we could come out of before this break unbeaten in particular, I think it's a gauntlet thrown down to all the other teams. Like if we can go and pretty much play them all and come out undefeated, it's a statement by Kieran and Ken to how well they put this team together, and it just shows how tough we are to beat. And I think that's probably part of it. If you can be tough to beat, you can go a long way in this. And what once again, not to harp back to everything from last year, but there was times where we just wanted us, not to be that easy. Where we were always conceding goals early, and then we were up against it last season towards, we're staying in games a lot longer. Tonight we might not be playing the best football, or road or luck at times, but then all of a sudden we clear one off the line and we go down the other end and score a worldie. It's a sliding door moment. you know, and that's what can happen. And I just think the longer we can stay undefeated, the more fear factor goes into other teams when they come and play us, because you start getting that. You start to get that mentality, in particular, hopefully here in Oriel Park. You kind of think people say, "Oh Jesus, you go up here, and you're like, we're not going to win." So you know, you've got people with negative thoughts and on the back foot straight away, and in a psychological battle that can be, you know, the small percentages that get you over the line in games. So I think it's a real statement, another statement victory from ourselves tonight, and just class to keep that unbeaten run. So it's, you know, that one more game to get to the break to still be unbeaten would be immense, I think.
Massive.
Is that us?
We're into Saturday. I think that is us.
We're into Saturday. It definitely is then. Right. Before we go, just want to thank all our sponsors as always. Thanks to Finney and all the lads in Tony's Pizza. Congratulations to Connell for your pizza tonight. To Player Fit. So probably just with the Dundalk third kit out at the moment, we'll just find a little window, maybe during the break or something is the time to go that. But we do have a new jersey for this year, so we'll be able to announce that very, very shortly. And thanks to Donald Green and Dundalk Village for overall sponsorship of the podcast as normal, and of course Mark Harlan and all the lads up in Black Mountain Studios as well. That's probably us for tonight then. Niall, thank you so much for jumping on. Thanks, Callie, for manning everything till I finally got in.
I said to Niall before we started, it's the first time I think I got it right at the start. I usually have my face up when it's too early, and that music still, poor David Keenan's on repeat.
Well, if you only got the one loop tonight, then fair play. I was separating Rainey and Kevin, so apologies for that. Maybe this is, you know, League of Ireland white collar boxing is a money spinner that we haven't thought of. Mark Scallon hasn't thought of just yet. But look, as I say, and Niall just said there, hopefully coming into the break now, we can keep this unbeaten run going. And we will be back next week with our normal post-match show. So until then, come on the town.
My black and white scarf, my black and white scarf, my black and white scarf, my black and white, yeah, it's black and white, we're just black and white, it's my black and white, it's my black and white scarf.